Thank you. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jordi Bruin, and next to me is Nicolaas Westerhof. Sorry. We're from Beyond Sports, and we're doing some pretty cool stuff with virtual reality that we'd like to show to you. So for the people who don't know virtual reality, I saw earlier today that a lot of people already experienced it. Just wanted to give a small recap. Virtual reality is basically a headset that you put on that transforms you into another world. That world is mostly, right now, a game or an experience as we saw just now. And at first it was done by some pretty technical companies, mostly focused on games. So you needed to have like $1,000 computer to use it, and you would need to buy a $400 headset to go with that. But in the past year, that's grown exponentially. So Facebook bought the main company, Oculus, for about $2 billion. They said, we're going to use this in 5 years. This is going to be the future of Facebook. And also stuff like Samsung, Sony, and even Google came into the space. And Google's by far the most widely used right now. It's basically a cardboard version of a headset where you can put your regular phone in. And just to give you a view of how many people are using this right now, the Cardboard app in the Google Play Store is already downloaded more than 1 million times on Android. And the cost of these cardboard devices are going down really fast. So right now, if you order, let's say, 10,000 or more, you can get them for around 2 or 3 euros each. So that makes it pretty feasible to use in campaigns or in experiences, unless you want to do something like Audi just did, because then they're probably going to be a little bit more expensive. So the past year, VR experiences most of the time have been something like this, where people go into a roller coaster and they experience something that they at first think it's, oh, I'm just going to look at a screen, right? But just to give you a small glimpse of how people experience that, I'd like to show you this little video.
God damn it! Oh, God, no, I don't want to do
So as you can see, people really have a feeling like they're there. It's just the sense of presence is what it's called. And that basically makes it so that it's indistinguishable. So that it's indistinguishable from like real life. And even though the graphics are not like real life yet, your brain gets tricked already so much by just the graphics and the fact that it moves with your head, that you really start to feel like you're there. And that's only going to progress over the next few years because the technology is going really fast. And right now there's 4K screens, 8K screens, and in about 5 years there's going to be a point where most people won't be able to notice like the difference. And especially I wear glasses. If I don't put my glasses on when I'm put one of those headsets on, it actually feels just like I woke up out of bed and just looked blurry into the world. But yeah, we thought this is fun, and 2 years ago we thought, all right, what can we do with this? This is actually useful. No consumers had it at the time, so there was no practical consumer thing to come up with. So we thought, all right, what industries can use this? So we came up with Beyond Sports, and there we looked at the soccer industry, where over the past 5 to 10 years, soccer clubs have been experimenting with data, like tracking all the players throughout the game, and then to figure out like how many kilometers did they run, how fast was their acceleration. And that used to look a little bit like this, where you get 2D dots move across the screen. And it would mostly be used like by video assistants to, like, say, this player was performing worse than he did at the training last week. So we figured, why not take this data and make it into something much more useful by translating it into a virtual reality simulation. So we take the data on the left and transform it to the stuff you see on the right. And this is what it looked like a year ago. But now it's more like a FIFA game that you would see, and it's still graphically not as good as we would want it to be. But for the stuff that we're doing with it right now, the graphics are not the most important, because that's one of the things that you get with VR, the fact that you can actually see depth, and you can see like the distance to a player, or you can look around while you're moving. That has some pretty interesting results that we already get with the current graphics quality. And it's only going to get better, obviously, so we figured we might as well just put that on a low burner and let that technology mature a bit first. So basically, technically what we do is we put some cameras on the sideline, we put them on the field, and then we use an engine that translates it into the game. And that's actually pretty cool, because yesterday we won the best technical achievement at the Dutch Game Awards right here in this building for that. So we were pretty proud about that. Thank you. And this is basically what it looks like. So just to start off, we're looking from the sidelines, and this is an actual game. So this is data from a game between, I think, Ajax and PSV from about a year ago. You see some glitches here and there in the data, so you see people move. And that's because the data, before it was used for stuff like this, the accuracy wasn't that important. But now that we see this, we see that a lot of stuff just doesn't work as well as we would want. And because it's all digital, we can use like add-on stuff on this. So you saw the lines just now to show like where are players at all times of the game, or are the players playing in the right position? Is the keeper standing properly in front of his goal? But what's even more interesting is when you look from the player's perspective, because you can just be any player you want. So you can be the striker who's giving the pass to the guy who's scoring the goal, but you can also be the other player who thought, hey, why didn't you play the ball to me? I mean, I was free here. And so you can give a lot of empathy there. But the cool thing is also that you can not just be your own teammates, but you can also be the opponent. So you can be the goalkeeper, and then you can see how your attack, how that was experienced by the competitor, and then you can see, all right, what could I have done differently? And just the fact that you're actually there and that you can relive everything. Well, Nicolaas has some examples of that later on as well. That brings up a lot of like arguments between players, because they, for the first time, can see what the other players witnessed at that time and why they made a certain decision. So back to this. What we saw with the roller coaster is that you felt like you're there, and that extends also to the soccer part. So we figured, do you want to be like 90 minutes in a game? Do you want to put the thing on and watch an entire game for 90 minutes? No, that's way too much work. You're going to get nauseous. It's not good. But what we figured out is that through some research we did with some university students from the University of Utrecht, is that we can actually like train people's minds and brains with this. So this was some research from last year where they put you into a position as if you were the goalkeeper, and we noticed that the goalkeepers would actually get like higher anxiety because they would like feel the tension that they would feel for a real penalty kick. And obviously it looked like this, so it isn't really good. But what we figured out with our thing is that because you're using it in VR, you get much better like view of the surroundings. So if you're running that way and a player is to the left, you know, like, all right, he's there, and if I look to the left now, he's probably going to be like 20 meters further than he was before. And that's like experience that we can only use with VR. And we even found out that we can like manipulate people's memories, which is a little scary at first. So that's also why we want to figure out this stuff before like putting it into practice, because we don't want to like brainwash people. But how we use this is that we gave a few players like a target to shoot on, so they had to shoot a ball 10 times at the goalpost. And then immediately afterwards, they would put the headset on to check, like, all right, what was my score? So let's say in reality, they shot the ball like 2 meters next to the goal. In the virtual reality simulation, we would make it like closer or further away from the goal. And then in most of the time, we noticed that the people thought, oh yeah, this was exactly how I shot, even though we just completely changed the data. So we can use that for interesting things that help the player, but it's also you need to be cautious of this, because you're transforming someone into a different world, and now that feels a little up in the air and spacey, but in 5 years from now, when this is like indistinguishable from real life, that's something you need to keep in mind, I think. And that's also why we're doing some stuff with like post-traumatic stress disorder and trying to find out what it causes. One more thing before I'm going to hand it off to Nicolaas is that we started with this, which was way too much detail. You could scrub throughout the entire timeline, and it was just, so we need to figure out a way for the clubs to actually use this, because right now we're working with the top 4 clubs in the Netherlands, so PSV, Ajax, Feyenoord and AZ. So we're actually putting it into practice in their trainings schedules. And to tell a little bit more about that, I'd like to hand it over to Nicolaas.
Thank you. Okay, yeah, so what I do at Beyond Sports is the technical implementation, the practical implementation at the clubs. So I talk to the coaches a lot and, think of new ways to actually put this to use in the day-to-day training. The thing that's actually being used the most right now is the custom scenarios, what we call it. So it's a training session which is completely in VR based on the real data. Which I'll share you later. This is something that they use right now, which is not something we built, but it's a training tool for players to train technically, and what clubs think of when they think of using new technologies to train. This is something they are most likely thinking of. It's receiving the ball from computerized system, receiving it, playing it to the right target, but it's purely technical. So it's not tactical at all. It's just the way they actually have to kick the ball. What we do is just the other way around. We have a purely tactical training. So that means that people, relive a certain situation. They eventually get the ball. And then what they have to do is they have to decide who to pass to or where to run to. And we kind of gamified it. So what they do is they receive the ball. They have this controller in their hands, which is the standard controller for VR, according to Oculus, which is the world's leader right now in VR. They use this controller to press a button, and therefore letting the coach know who they want to pass to or where they want to run to. And then the coach has said before, like, I want him to make that decision or I want him to make that decision. And then the player has to make that decision according to the club's philosophy or the coach's philosophy. That's what we train with this. It's really club specific. That's really something we noticed working at the different clubs. If you go to Amsterdam, they might say you have to pass it to X, the blue one. But when you go to Eindhoven, they say no, you have to pass it to B. So it's really different per club, and that's what makes it really interesting. And that's, for us, it's more like a validation of that it's actually useful, because it's not something that you can just give to a club and then use it. They have to really specify to their own tactics. What you then see is, in this case, a lot of players actually pick Y. So that's the player closest to them. But what we want players to learn from this situation is that they have to play to X. It's a little tactical, but I can explain if you want to. This is our tactical view. So if players are not agreeing with the coach, or they want to understand why the coach wants them to make certain decisions, then they can switch to tactical view. And this is the same situation that you saw before. So you're the white player with the ball. Over here, those are the three colored options. And what the coach wants you to do is play an X, so he can then play it to the red one or the yellow one, instead of playing it to the yellow one, because X is, the blue one is really close to the goal. It's kind of like tactical thing. I won't bore you with it, but that's something that players really get to think about using this engine. Then they get a score. So if they make the right decisions, then they have a higher score. If they make decisions faster, they have an even higher score. And what we aim at with youth players is that the average reaction time should be 0.5, so 0.5 seconds. That means that the player already made this decision before he got the ball. So if he gets the ball and then has to look around and start making decisions, then you see the reaction time really go up and the score goes down. So this is a practical situation. This is where he gets into one of these moments.
Dan krijg je een discussie met je trainer. Daar is hij 1 tegen 1, maar daar staat het ook 1 tegen 1. Dus als je hem inspeelt, kan hij gelijk naar de goal. Kan je even naar boven brengen weer? Dan kan je van boven.
So this is Steven Berghuis from AZ, Alkmaar. And he's totally not agreeing with his coach. And that's really nice to see, because with tactical discussions, previous to our program, it was just like this. Like, the coach would present something and the players would sit in chairs and just listen, or not, or play on their phones or whatever. And now they're really in there, and they get really agitated if they get it wrong, because they really want to get it right. Especially because of the leaderboards. That's something that footballers really like, being the best. So they get really agitated if they get it wrong, and that's something that the coaches really like, because then you get the discussions. Like, they really have to think about why they have to make certain decisions, and then they come to the coach and then they want to discuss it, instead of just listen it in a classroom. From practical situations, we saw a lot of issues with VR as a concept, because when someone is inside of a VR glass, you can communicate with them well. So we created this, which is a tool for the coach used on the iPad. And there you can actually see what the players saw from the top view. And we have a lot of stuff like this, just all these extra things that we came across using it in practice. And we keep on developing it together with the clubs and coaches. So that's really cool. We use it as first teams, but with Dutch soccer teams, they want to play the same system through the whole academy. So what we do is we take the first team practices and also let the under 13s, under 12s do that same practice, and then they can, show if they can compete with the first team, even though they're not physically there yet. Maybe mentally they are, or tactically, and so they can show that by doing this training. And first team players can actually do that as well on the level of even higher players. So youth teams can play at the level of first team players, but first team players can play at the level of, godlike players. So that was what we do with the clubs in practice.
Thank you. So now we're 2 years further away from when we started, and consumer stuff is slowly getting out there. So we figured, all right, what's the next step going to be for us if we want to do stuff like this for consumers? So like I said before, Facebook bought Oculus about a year ago now, and they're basically saying that at first people were using Facebook just with text, and then slowly they were using pictures when they got camera phones, and they imagine that in 2 years most of the Facebook feed is just going to be video with the self-playing videos that everyone's familiar with. But later, like in 5 or 6 years, they imagine that VR and AR is going to be like the next thing, because that's the only way. Well, not the only way, but that's the way that you can really share what it's like to be where you are. So a previous talk mentioned it already, where right now they rolled this out where Star Wars made a 360 video that appears just in your timeline. And this can, in the future, just not be like commercial content, but also content that you shoot with like a handheld camera that makes 360 degrees video. So obviously Facebook doesn't want everyone to start wearing cardboards now, because it looks silly and the quality is it's impractical at first, but that's gonna go down over time. We're slowly seeing it now with the cardboard, but we're getting stuff like this already where you can just put your phone in there and it really looks dorky, but it's gonna make it much easier. And in 10 years we're just gonna have some sunglasses that you put on, and those are gonna be your VR goggles. So if you look at like the Beats headphones, imagine 20, maybe not 20, like 40 years ago, people would have looked at you like crazy. What's that on your ears? And I think personally that's going to be the same for stuff like this. And even if it comes something like this, where you have like a case for your phone, that's also a goggle when you extend it. So this obviously lowers the threshold to use stuff like this, but it's also mostly a social thing. So over the next few years, we're mostly going to see people in their gaming rooms just play video games, but there's going to be separate worlds next to that people are just going to be in all the time. So we need to be careful, like people getting addicted to stuff like this. We actually think that kids are going to prefer visiting virtual places rather than going to real life places, because the place that they go virtually, they can go to more places faster, cheaper, and they can be there instantly. Just imagine you're browsing on YouTube, you click a video, even kids are like 2 or 3 years old, they click related video, and they switch from video to video to video. And just imagine that you can do that not with videos, but with actual experiences. So you can be at your favorite concert at the front seat without paying, without flying there. It can be on the other side of the world where you normally wouldn't be able to go. And 1 second later you can be in a field with horses or other animals. And that's just going to be so powerful, because it's also going to be commercial and real content, so all those things are going to be combined. And because it's going to be real life, or close to real life, at least for your senses, it's going to be very interesting to see what that does to you as a person. And if you're actually going to just not go out anymore because everything in your goggles is just much nicer and much easier to go to. So imagine you going to the Colosseum. It's nice to go there and you see it in real life, but imagine you can go and fly through it with a drone. That's an experience that you won't ever be able to get in real life. And I think, has anyone here ever been to the Colosseum? All right, so that's maybe not the best example. Has anyone ever been to the Great Wall of China? see much less people have been there. And for most people in the world, like let's say 95%, they're not going to go to all the places that they want to go to in their life. So this is the next best alternative. Let's say it's either don't go to the Wall of China, maybe see a video or a picture, or be there virtually. And especially when you see these trends where, well, it's not necessarily a trend, but there's this thing where you can be someone else and then you control another person who just walks around with a camera and you just say, all right, move that way, and he moves that way for you. You can imagine just having a virtual tourist just walk through the Great Wall of China and you control him. And like said before as well, Netflix actually made an app for the Oculus Rift and for the Gear VR where you can just put on the headset and then you're in a mountain house with a nice couch, and you're watching Netflix. So wherever you are, you can watch Netflix on a big screen. So imagine in the train, just put it on, and you're watching Netflix. And there's stuff like this already for cinemas right now, where people gather with like 50 or 60 people and just watch content. And this gives so many new opportunities, not just for content parties like this, but also just for experiences that brands and stuff can do. And to get more towards the soccer thing, you can obviously think of stuff like this, where we put a camera in the middle of the field and you can be like amongst your favorite players. And that's pretty cool. That's experience that you'll never be able to get. But it's especially interesting when you look at, like I said before, the average stadium can fit like 50,000 people. But a club like Manchester United has like millions of fans all over the world who will never be able to go there. So this can seem gimmicky to us, because we can just go to the club, but so many people won't be able to do that, and this is the next best thing. And sometimes it's just going to be easier because you don't have to go there, you don't have to pay for the stupid crazy drinks and stuff, and it's going to be close enough. And then the thing is, all right, are we going to not do real life stuff anymore? Well, obviously not, because even with virtual stuff, I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with League of Legends. It's a video game that's being played competitively for like millions of dollars. This is actually a gathering where people played that game, and like 40,000 people came to watch people play the game. And so in North Korea, it's even worse, or worse depending on what you think. They're watching a game and then standing in the stadium cheering for their fans who are playing, for their players who are standing at the front. So this is basically virtual sports going to the real world, and it's probably going to go the other way around as well, because Twitch to the left is a big gaming platform where people just play games and other people watch other people play games. And it's not famous people, it's people like you and I. And you can chat with people on the left, use funny memes and stuff like that. And just switch to a different game whenever you want. And fantasy football and stuff like that is also growing. Like 50 million people use it every year. So all these virtual experiences are going to slowly, they are already like transforming real life sports and real life events. And a lot of people prefer stuff like that, especially the younger generation. And then there's the thing with video, like we just showed, is that it uses a lot of data, and for a lot of people on mobile phones, that's still an issue, and it's going to be an issue for the next few years, especially if you look at that it's 4 to 5 times as much as a regular video. So then it's interesting to start looking at maybe using a virtual simulation, like the stuff we did just now, where you maybe use virtual stuff on top of real images. And we think that eventually you can just combine things, where you get the highlights of a video game, of a soccer game, and you can just watch them regularly and just view the game and just keep watching. But with the click of a button, you can just put on your Oculus headset or your cardboard and just relive the same situation, but then from the perspective from your favorite player. So you can just be your favorite player throughout the game. So that's a completely new experience that won't be able to be done like with cameras. And Heineken or whoever can just provide those things, especially if the cost goes down, and they're already sponsors for stuff like that. So we think that in the next 2 years you're going to be able to do stuff like this, where you're watching TV, and then whenever you want, you just grab your cardboard and you're live in the point of view from the player that you want to be, or your favorite player, and you see the actual game happening from his eyes, and you score the goal that brings you to the Champions League, or that extends you to the next generation, to the next league. So yeah, this is basically what we made.